We can probably do it. Okay, is everybody ready? Okay, the next speaker I think was Gary Anderson. Gary Anderson. No? Is Gary Anderson here? Okay, we're going to skip Gary Anderson. Move on to Mary Menapace. Menapace. Okay, apologize.
Hi everybody. I had prepared comments too, which I'm going to go over really briefly, but basically I'm a registered nurse. I work with pregnant women and children, and they're a vulnerable population for the health effects of gas buildout. And I am basically here tonight because I found out recently in my work on getting some comments that I live on Skinny Atlas Lake. I live on one of Skinny Atlas Lake. I live on one of the cleanest lakes, depending on how you define it, in the world. And if I were 4 years younger, I'm old, I'm 54. If I were 50 years old, or I were a child under 13, I can eat 0 fish out of my lake because of the pollution from fossil fuel combustion. I can eat no fish. We used to fish. We used to eat the perch once in a while. Shouldn't have fed them to my kids, shouldn't have eaten the landlocked salmon. That's why I'm here. I love this state, and I strongly object to FERC allowing literally tens of tons of noxious, cancer-causing volatile chemicals to be emitted into the atmosphere with no studies. And there are no economic studies of the diseases that causes. And is Mr. Rasmussen still here?
No, yeah.
Somebody give him this message, please. His friend. Pardon me?
Dave Rasmussen.
Okay, Dave. Give him this message, please, to call his friend down in North Carolina. This is personal for me because we have 3 daughters. 2 of them straddle the largest gas field in America, the Wattenberg gas field. One lives in Fort Collins and one lives south of Denver. And I hooked them up with the Dr. John Hughes, is his name. He's in Carbondale, Colorado, and he does urine and serum and tissue sampling of people that live near gas buildout. And you know what he chose as the facilities to test people because they are the most noxious and the most dangerous facilities that emit the most toxins? He chose compressor stations in the city of Longmont. And in Carbondale, he's trying to do the right thing, which FERC should be mandating, and the Department of Health should be mandating baseline studies. He took some people in Carbondale, Colorado, and he did very specific blood panels for volatile organic chemicals, and he found no benzene in the blood of anybody in Carbondale, which hasn't been drilled yet, but it's leased and it's going to be drilled. He went to Longmont, Colorado, and took people that lived within 800 feet of compressor stations. There is a random level of benzene that they get alarmed over this level. Benzene causes leukemia and other diseases in the long term. So his friends in North Carolina may not be sick now, but 10 years down the road, they may develop MLL, a very deadly form of leukemia from benzene. My daughters are being tested. Dr. John Hughes found people in Longmont, Colorado that had 232 times the level of benzene in their bloodstream that is considered alarming.
Oh my God.
So they need to know this here. You people need to know this here. I'm from Skinny Atlas, but I'm in solidarity here. And our 2 daughters are in touch with Dr. John Hughes because I want them tested, and they want to be tested every 6 months because they live near gas build-out. So was my off-the-cuff comment. But you know what I want to say is I am nobody special. I am a citizen. I am an informed citizen that got caught by the throat. On my hill and near our old house, we just moved 4 miles down the road, but near our old house, Chesapeake came through and drilled a dozen exploratory wells. So I learned all about high volume fracking once those wells
You gotta slow down a little bit.
Once those wells were sitting there, 4 years ago, I learned all about high volume horizontal fracking that might happen in our area. Then I learned about non-disclosure agreements. There's 2 farmers on the hill above me. They no longer talk. There was a water well that was impacted and nobody knows what happened. We live down in the valley. It was almost 10 years ago. It was in 2006 and farmers don't talk to each other anymore. God bless you. Then I learned about leasing fraud. 4 miles from my house, there was lease fraud, friends of ours on Atisco Lake. The lease that they signed wasn't the lease that was filed with the county. Then,
Ms. Benepace, you could wrap it up quickly.
yep, so then I learned about compressor stations and compressed natural gas and liquid natural gas. And I learned about all of it, though I never wanted to know about any of it. And what I want FERC to know is, now we know. I am one of hundreds of thousands of people across New York State that marched in the climate change march. I am one of millions of people across the world. And business as usual is done for you guys because we are going to show up for these projects and we are going to speak up. And what we're going to demand is clean, renewable energy economies with sustainable, safe jobs. Thank you.
Next speaker is Natalia Emelin.
Yep.
Okay, and the person after that is Alan Vogel.
Hi, I'm Natalia Emlin, and I live in Tompkins County. I live in Ithaca, New York. And I'm going to start with a question. And my question is, where were you on Sunday, September 21st, 2014? 400,000 people were marching in just New York City alone, to say nothing of sister marches around the world. And they were all demanding world leaders finally address the critical need to stop extracting and burning fossil fuels. In my opinion, and in the opinion of those 400,000 plus other people, it is time to stop what I now call the climate nightmare. So FERC, please pay attention to the science. And please do an open, transparent, full environmental impact statement on Dominion's New Market project. And from my hometown of Ithaca, New York, brought you a little bit of stuff off a certain professor's webpage.
Okay.
I brought you 2 of his papers on methane emissions. I'm not saying it's exactly cradle to grave, but that's what an entire impact statement should talk about. And a paper that suggests how New York State can go 100% renewable in a reasonable time frame. We need a Marshall Plan for renewable energy, and we need to cut the fossil fuel.
Okay, real quick announcement before we go to Mr. Alan Vogel. Whoever has a Toyota Corolla with a bike rack that is parked by the post office, their lights are on. So, Toyota Corolla with the bike rack, parked by the post office, their lights are on. So, okay. Next person is Alan Vogel. Is Mr. Alan Vogel here? Okay.
My name is Morris. I have laryngitis, so I'm going to ask you to read this.
Okay. You asked me to read. Okay.
Mora, M-A-U-R-A.
Okay. Maura asked me to read this for her. She speaks for herself and many others in saying that she does not recognize FERC's dominion over your entire future. She says that the entire process is a sham and that most of us are aware, or most of you are aware, that FERC's realized the mission of abetting corporate abusers of the public trust and making the regulatory process as smooth as easy for them as they possibly can. She states that
Could you just read it as I wrote it, please?
okay. She states that we do not need an environmental impact statement or health impact statement because there is already an overwhelming evidence that pipelines and accompanying compressor
I
stations.
can't. Overwhelming evidence.
Okay.
Yeah, no, just
Yeah,
slow
I'll
down
do
a
my
little
best
bit.
with it because you're not doing
Here,
a
I'll
very
read
good
it
job.
for you, Maura.
Thank
Okay.
you. I would appreciate it.
We want to talk quickly, which you asked other people not to do, which is unfair. All right. The second one, the entire process is a sham, and most of us are aware of FERC's realized mission of abetting corporate abusers of the public trust and making the regulatory process as smooth and easy for them as they possibly can, and that's talking about the corporations. We do not need an environmental impact statement or a health impact statement because there's already
overwhelming evidence that pipelines and the accompanying compressor stations and other infrastructure of fossil fuel exploitation, storage, and transportation related industries are harmful to the point of murder to humans and animals.
Whoa.
4, it is a crime against people and the planet for you to continue permitting new fossil fuel infrastructure at a time when public awareness is growing rapidly about fossil fuels' horrific contribution to hastening catastrophic climate change. Climate disruption, along with ongoing corporate agricultural contamination of our life support systems, will plunge thousands of miles of coastlines.
I'm sorry. Contamination of our life support systems will.
Hold on. Plunge, where am I?
Plunge.
Okay, thank you. Plunge thousands of miles of coastlines into the sea, already causing extinction of countless species and threatens the future of our own species. We've lost 52% of the animals to extinction globally, and 73% of freshwater species animals have gone to extinction. Something to pay attention to. What we need is a new system whereby the Federal Energy Rubber Stamp Corporation is not the determining body about energy policy and projects, but in which communities and neighbors can decide that they want incentives to conserve energy, and when they must use energy, it will not come from fossil fuels, but will be renewable, non-toxic, non-explosive, and non-radioactive. 6, with many others, I will work to defy the FERC until it is replaced with a body that is responsible to the people, to the planet on which we depend for survival, not to fossil fuel corporations and the politicians embedded with them.
Thank you. I know you won't read it.
The next person is Peter Heidelberg. After that is Christina Turicek.
Yeah, Hudiburg, H-U-D-I-B-U-R-G. Well, there have been a lot of extremely eloquent speakers tonight, extremely knowledgeable speakers, and so I won't try to match their eloquence or knowledge, but I do want to make some observations regarding our system. It's real tragedy that we have politicians, our federal leaders, who are determining our policies, namely our energy policies, and are accelerating the build-out of the gas industry when it's becoming more and more widely known and scientifically accepted that, methane is 86 times more warming than carbon dioxide. And so it's really unconscionable that the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission should be approving these projects without exception. It's unconscionable that FERC should not be looking at the evidence that there is physical harm done to people living in proximity to these compressor stations. It's unconscionable that FERC should be approving all these compressor stations throughout Pennsylvania, especially Susquehanna and Bradford counties, in high concentrations. And I witnessed a hearing in Pennsylvania after an explosion at a compressor station, and the Public Service Commission, which of course is state, but it's part of the whole system. You know, every regulatory agency asks for permission and advice from the industry that they're supposedly regulating. Well, what should we do? What do you want us to do? That's basically what it comes down to. So this Pennsylvania Public Service Commission was deferring to the gas company that was responsible for the explosion. And it turned out that they had no monitors on site. So they had no idea what toxic gases were released during that explosion. So, you know, I mean, if this new pipeline is going to incorporate 3 compressor stations along this route, that would be releasing 200,000 tons of additional greenhouse gases. We're supposed to be concerned about global warming. Global warming is accelerating. If I've not already said it, it has been said already. Methane is 86 times more warming than carbon dioxide. That is the only way that we'll get a handle, manage to slow down the global warming, if we can reduce the methane. But FERC is doing nothing in that regard. They're doing the opposite. They're enabling the expansion of the industry. So I want to suggest that FERC perhaps rename itself the Federal Energy Renewable Commission.
Yay!
Because basically we need to transition to electric. We need renewably generated electricity. We don't need gas. You know, you can cook better with an induction electric stove. We don't need gas. Brooklyn residents, New York City residents, don't need to be poisoned by radon from Marcellus shale.
Wrap it up, Mr.
Okay.
Albert. Thank you.
And another potential renaming for the agency should be something like the Federal Renewable Energy Enabling Commission, which would be FREAK for short.
Christina? Oh, you okay?
I'll give you the same,
Okay.
the spelling.
Thanks.
Thank you for hearing these comments from all of us. I have relatives who live in this area.
Could you state your name?
Christina Turacek.
Turchek, okay.
I have relatives who live in this area, and I'm concerned for their health, safety, and welfare. But starting with a larger view, 1, this whole Dominion New Markets project, including the expansion of pipeline capacity and the accompanying compressor stations, is a sin against our planet. Mother Nature already has put us on notice that time is short. People, animals, and plants already have been affected by climate change. And you just heard about it. No permits or money should go to support any energy that is not renewable. 2, I consider it treason against all Americans who are trespassed upon when private profit is gained from transporting American fossil fuels to foreign markets, as this collection of compressor stations and pipelines are set up to do via the Iroquois pipeline to Canada and points beyond. This multiple trespass includes the extraction of fossil fuels through the use of forced pooling and compulsory integration, the theft of private property for pipelines through the use of eminent domain, and the poisoning of unwitting men, women, and children, living creatures and plants, and the soil through spills, accidents, well and pipe failures, and in the case of compressor stations, noise pollution, including harmful decibel levels, as well as harmful low-frequency noise, and thank you for mentioning that, which no one seems to consider, and most especially the inescapable toxic emissions we'll have to breathe, and the huge amounts of greenhouse gas emissions estimated to be over 200,000 tons per year from all 3 of this project's compressor stations. Let us remember the 5th Amendment of our Constitution, of the U.S. Constitution. No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Instead of one public hearing, it is only fair that additional scoping hearings should be given to residents all along the 200-mile project. You've heard that over and over. If this is the only one, you have cheated the public. Because of the size of this project, you must ask that Dominion provide a full environmental impact statement rather than merely an environmental assessment. To require less would again cheat the public as well as the environment. All cumulative impacts must be investigated. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person on the list, actually, I can't read the handwriting at all.
Jim McDowell.
Oh, I'm sorry, couldn't read it.
I didn't know I was going to be speaking. I thought everybody signed
Okay,
up.
could
So.
you speak your name again and spell it?
Yeah, Jim McDowell. Like I said, I didn't know I was going to be speaking. I didn't hear about this whole event until 2 days ago. And my Aunt Christina, who just spoke, told me about it. And so I didn't know that I would even be here. But after coming and realizing how many people are here, I'm kind of astounded at the importance of it. And obviously, many of the speakers spoke to that and really educated me about this whole project. And I'll be brief because I don't really have anything prepared, but I find it hard to believe that FERC would not be able to anticipate the outpouring of interest in this subject. I worked on a comprehensive plan in the town of Lebanon. I live right over the hill. And we sent out a survey. And in that survey, we got a 41% response rate. And the number one issue was natural gas. That is the hot issue in New York State. And I find it unbelievable that you would not be able to anticipate this. And I don't know, the net effect is basically to limit public input. And that is not going to work.
Well, first off, I want to categorically deny that was ever my plan. I promised I'd be back here. We have meetings. That is my job to have meetings. But categorically deny that was in any anticipation.
I didn't mean to insinuate that was what your motive was. But the net effect is that it limits public input on an issue that's really important to people. And the fact that your estimation was so poor, I'm concerned that that for your estimations on the project, what are they going to be? Are they going to be the same thing? I mean, I'm concerned, and I definitely think we need more meetings. We need to have a meeting in every one of the towns. And if there were more meetings, you wouldn't see so many people in one place. But I think because there was one meeting, everybody thought they have to be here. So anyway, thank you. And
Thank you. The next person is Paul Mendelson, and after that is Catherine Dawson.
I've got, like many other people, I have many issues with FERC, and I'm looking forward to a lot of answers that were raised tonight. At the same time, Eric, I would like to thank you for your patience under a difficult set of circumstances here. But the first thing, this is a scoping hearing, so the first thing I will ask for is extended scoping sessions, as I think you suggested. I've seen a lot of signs tonight that say new opportunities. And my response to that is, new opportunities is a zero-sum game, folks. New opportunities for a few people, I think we were told 2 years of work for a few hundred people. Some of us have taken the opportunity. I built my home a mile from the gas line 40 years ago. I've been working on that opportunity for a long time. We've heard a lot of opportunities that people were looking at possibly having to give up. And we need to look at simply not just the opportunities, but the trade-offs here. Oh, I think that has been addressed here. I live in Cherry Valley, about a mile from the gas pipeline. In the 40-some years I've been there, I've never seen any serious construction done there. I know it has to, like everything else, deteriorate some. If they're going to pump more gas at a greater volume and greater pressure, I have to ask what evidence we have to know that that is safe. The safety and compliance records of the operator must be disclosed. Maximum allowable operating pressure must be made public and verified. I also live about just a short distance from the Brookman's Corners station, which is being proposed. I and my neighbors do not have exemptions from the bodily harm from nitrous oxide, carbon monoxide, volatile organic compounds, sulfur dioxide, formaldehyde, particulate matter. We don't have those exemptions. The companies that are providing the gas have all sorts of exemptions for looking out for our health, which no other, by the way, even a dry cleaner or a donut shop on the corner would have to comply with. But that said, this is about FERC, really, at this point, and here's an exemption that I'm looking at. There'll be an environmental assessment as opposed to an environmental impact statement. And I'm saying there are rules here and we need to follow them. So that is my next request. I would like also to see a full build-out analysis of cumulative impacts resulting from the increased use of fracked gas on the environmental health and societal impacts of more drilling and fracking. And I guess lastly here, I would like to see Dominion conduct, FERC was to analyze the conflict between exporting gas as opposed to all the gas that we were told was going to be used for domestic consumption. People's properties were taken by compulsory, you know what I mean? Integration. Integration, thank you. There's a conflict here. If this was done for American gas for Americans, when of course we should be looking at alternatives, but I won't go there. There's a conflict, and that's something else that I would like to see FERC look into. Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine Dawson. Okay, Catherine Dawson seems to have left. We're going to move to Seti. Is that the right? Seti Heard?
Betty Head.
Betty? Is that Betty? Oh, sorry, it looks like an S. Betty, I apologize.
51.
Yes.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. I'm very curious, are any Dominion representatives here tonight?
Yes.
Yes, they are. They're here? Okay. Could we see them? Would they stand and tell us who they are and what they do?
Well, after you're done with your comments, you know, they are not part of the meeting.
I know, but they're here. And I just wanted to make sure that they were here and they were staying for the long haul like I was.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I'll ask them to just say their name and what they do.
At the end. Okay, all right. I'm very interested in what domain FERC has besides. I know it has domain here with the pipeline, but it does it have domain with railroad tracks? It doesn't. When they go on interstate.
We do not regulate railroad tracks.
Okay, all right. Okay. I was just curious because we've been talking about the DOT quite often tonight, along with FERC. And I know that DOT has been having problems with the trains that are carrying the heavy-duty Bakken crude oil into the Port of Albany. And there have been any number of accidents, as we know, and some people certainly have been killed in those accidents with those trains. And I was just wondering whether FERC had domain over the tracks, but they don't.
We do not have any regulation.
Okay, all right, you're off the hook on that, okay. I have real concern about enforcement here. When I was reading this document, which is an interstate natural gas facility on my land document, which apparently is put out by FERC, what do I need to know? It makes, I'm sorry, but in reading this, and I was an English major, it makes it sound so safe to have a compressor station, for example. It says, for example, there's a question here. Are there special safety or fire issues associated with compressor stations? A, this is the answer. All interstate natural gas facilities, including compressor stations, are required to comply with the U.S. Department of Transportation's minimum safety standards. Interesting, because those trains going into Albany, you better believe that they're carrying that very volatile Bakken crude oil in what we call Pepsi can cars that were designed to carry corn syrup or molasses. And they're carrying heavy-duty oil with these noxious gases that can go poof with just one ping that could penetrate one of those cars. So we're relying on the DOT here? I think we better scratch our heads and go back to the drawing board. Compressor stations are constructed with many safety systems such as gas and fire detection systems and emergency shutdown equipment. These systems are designed to ensure that in the event of an accident, the compressor station would be safely shut down with minimal risk to the public. This is published by FERC, and I think it's very revealing. You really should read this document. When it really comes down to it, in my opinion, people, those people in our legislatures, those people in Congress who are letting the fossil fuel train run on and on and on, they need to be tossed the hell out of Congress and out of our legislatures, and we need to put people in who will take care of us and who won't let these crazy happenings go on under organizations like FERC and the DOT. Let's get real.
Next is Sean DeLuce. Sean. Okay. We're gonna skip. Next is Eliza Pritchard.
Thank you so much.
Well, first off, I'd like to state these are comments from my husband and I. We live about a mile from the proposed location, and we are not proponents of this project. We chose to relocate to rural Georgetown so that we would not be living in an industrial environment. That being said, when we learned the project was being proposed, we raised our concerns to our town supervisor, Paul Walrod. Louder. Upon speaking to Paul, we felt somewhat comfortable when he described some of the actions that he and the Madison County Health Department were planning on pursuing. Our comfort quickly turned to concern as we learned more about FERC's willingness to consider a partial environmental impact statement and partial applications from Dominion. In our opinion, these fast-track tactics send a very dangerous message to Dominion that they are exempt from full oversight and that they can potentially cut corners here in Georgetown. It leaves doubt in our minds that FERC will properly oversee and hold Dominion accountable to maintain guidelines and to protect the people and the resources of our area. These tactics are cause for concern not only for the residents of Georgetown and surrounding Madison County towns, but for, and I didn't even realize the extent until tonight of how far this reached, but for all residents that may be confronted with this type of development being proposed in their areas in the future. The people of New York State have made it overwhelmingly clear at a state level that they will not entertain participation in industry energy without full study and determination of any and all impacts to our personal health and our environment. So as we look to this federal agency, we demand the same full oversight, due diligence, should you choose to move forward with this project. And that begins with full investigation, study, determination of the impacts on our environment, our health, and our general quality of life in this area. We will expect that FERC will not shortcut the focus and attention required for a project of this magnitude. Finally, should this project proceed, we will also expect that same level of oversight and due diligence will continue throughout the entire project, including strict observance and enforcement of local ordinances governing noise pollution, light pollution, and road use. We had submitted detailed comments on August 6th, and I won't go through those comments again, but the main point that my husband and I want to make is you are responsible to hold them accountable. And what I'm hearing here is that's not how this game is played. We are maybe a small town, but we are not stupid people. We are going to watch every move. We are going to watch you guys, and we are going to watch those guys, and we're going to. I see the videos. Those people aren't making up the noise monitor showing the decibels at 86. They're not making that up. They're not fabricating that. I've heard the noise. I don't want to hear that. I didn't just invest in solar on my house. And by the way, for the folks that are from the unions, there was 15 guys in my house for a week. Okay? And they had 5 other jobs behind that. So I'd hate to have to move and leave behind my solar energy unless I can take it with me. I really hope you choose not to move forward with this program.
The next commenter is Mary Alice Kobler. After that would be Ross Horowitz.
I think what you're hearing tonight is that the people hold you and hold FERC in contempt. We hold you in contempt with your public hearing that nobody could hear in the back, that people couldn't get in. You know, what you hear all over this nation is that people have lost their faith in the regulatory agencies that govern our lives. We are really, really fighting mad. And it's your contempt of us is just so obvious and appalling. Your fast tracking for the people, your masters, the oil and gas industry is appalling. I'm not an engineer, but increased pressure on old pipelines, duh. Do you think it's going to leak more? I think so. We absolutely need a full environmental impact statement. And nobody's monitoring it now, so why would we believe that you're monitoring it ever? You know, we have no faith in you anymore. The fox is guarding the hen house, and we believe there should be no sacrifice zones. No sacrifice zones. I don't want to sell down the 3 people that live down on that block because there's 6 on this block. I've been pro-union all my life. My family is in construction, and nobody could say that I'm not a union supporter. I want good green jobs now. And I didn't use my 3 minutes because somebody, Jonathan Comstock, will tell you what we did in Tompkins County in 1 year for green jobs. Good paying green jobs.
Sir,
My name is Jonathan Comstock,
Jonathan Comstock.
and I live in the town of Caroline, Tompkins County. I've heard a couple of times the quote from the Dominion's documents that, not that there's no harm involved with these, but that the level of harm pales next to the general good. that comes from this energy rich society that we have. And this sort of hard pragmatic realism. But behind it is the assumption that there are no other options, that we have to do this or we have to go back and live in caves. And we know that's not true today. We've heard a bunch of people talk about their solar systems. In Tompkins County, we ran a Solar Tompkins program. It's going to put 2 megawatts of solar on 300 to 400 homes this year alone. That's created 20 new permanent jobs with the solar installers that are local businesses in those communities, enriching those communities in an ongoing permanent way. Those systems will be paid off in 5 to 10 years. Instead of all of the cost of the power that's running those houses going to the Koch brothers and other oil magnates and gas companies, $200,000 a year stays in the pockets of the people who own those solar systems to spend in their communities. That enriches the community. So oil has played a role in the development of our society. It has brought more people out of poverty than anything you can think of, and it has also done more to create wealth disparity in our country than anything else. And we can move beyond that today. We have better options, and we should take them.
Mr. Ross Horowitz. Ross Horowitz. Okay. Kelly Brannigan. After Kelly is Kathy Schimberg. I apologize.
Do you need to spell my last name?
I think you wrote it, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay. Thanks.
I live over an hour and a half away. I heard of this meeting about 2 days ago. I live very close to the Montgomery County project. I have not had a chance to read through the scoping documents. This is all new to me. This project will not only affect those people that live within a half mile of it. You can't contain those emissions to a half mile. Those emissions will spread, and the emissions from this proposed compressor station are enormous. I have friends who live in that area who have no idea any of this is happening. It is just unconscionable that we have one scoping meeting an hour and a half away from where we live, no time to prepare. And to say that people within a half mile are the only ones who are informed is just wrong. I have comments that I will submit, as limited as they are. One thing I do want to talk about is a program that is sponsored here in New York State by our own DEC. It's aimed at increasing community sustainability, creating cleaner, greener communities, fighting climate change through local initiatives designed to reduce greenhouse gases, and to decrease community dependence on fossil fuels while increasing our use of renewable energy. Communities in our area and all over the state sign a formal pledge resolving to work toward all of the above. Allowing the massive expansion of a pollution-creating, greenhouse gas-spewing compressor station goes against everything we are striving to accomplish. There is absolutely no benefit to us locally. Dominion is pursuing this solely for profit as they plan for exports of methane gas to Canada and overseas via Cove Point. There is no public good for New York. The harm this will do is incalculable. How can FERC approve something like this without taking into account what we are trying to do in this state? We are trying to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels, not increase them. We are trying to protect our communities. It is an outrage and a complete injustice for FERC to approve fossil fuel infrastructure at this junction in time. We need less gas build-out and more renewable investment. Locally, we pass laws to protect our residents. We have comprehensive plans, we have zoning. FERC ignores all of this. When will FERC start looking at these myriad projects that are being proposed in relation to their impacts on climate change? I am appalled you've never denied a project in 13 years. That does not inspire confidence. Numerous projects, we need to look at cumulative impacts. You talked about air quality and kind of brushed it off. Air quality is an environmental impact. Air quality is a health impact. We see that you get your information from the industry. We are limited to the information that's funneled to us, those things that are not secret documents. The deck is stacked against us. It's no secret that the industry consistently lies. They don't give us all the information. We are the ones that suffer. Earlier in the night, you said you don't live here. That's correct. We do. We will be the ones impacted, not the so-called decision makers in their FERC offices far, far away. When will FERC stop approving these climate-destroying, unhealthy, outdated gas infrastructure projects? When will you finally start saying no?
Right here, right now.
Very interesting to hear FERC's answers to all of those questions that she posed.
Okay. We will answer.
And when we get done with the other people who are talking, I have a couple of due process questions to ask you.
And if the community and everyone says no, don't we have a right? If we all say no and nobody wants it, then go away.
I understand the point of view.
Watching, you're coming anyways, no? It's not your party. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Kelly is a hard act to follow. My name is Kathy, K-A-T-H-Y, Schimberg, S-H-I-M-B-E-R-G. I live in Otsego County. I'm not in the far northern part of, I'm in the middle of Otsego County. I'm not in the far northern part that is close to the Brookman corner, but I have friends who live there. And I have friends who live all along the route as I see it on the map. And I have friends in Massachusetts who are going to be impacted by a compressor station they want to build for the Northeast Energy Direct Kinder Morgan pipeline. And I'm surprised you didn't know that this many people would turn out, because there have been other scoping meetings in connection with other FERC hearings. We are impacted where I am by the Constitution pipeline and by working on fracking possibility since 2008. And a lot of us have done a lot of research and have paid attention to a lot of other research that keeps coming to light more and more all the time. We know that the oil and gas industry, as some other industries, minimize the harms. I would think FERC would know. I would like FERC to look into that. I want to second what a lot of people have said, especially even though I guess Maura has left, even though Maura felt we don't need an EA or an EIS, I think we do need an EIS, extensive. And I also am concerned about unlawful segmentation, because this 200-mile pipeline will connect to the Iroquois. We're working on the Constitution pipeline. If that goes through, that hasn't been quite finished yet, but it's still in the works. And we may have Kinder Morgan's pipeline also coming along the same path as the Constitution pipeline. That will connect with the Iroquois pipeline. That will connect with the part of the Tennessee gas pipeline that goes into Massachusetts and beyond, who knows where. So this seems like segmentation, bits and pieces of various pipelines that connect to each other interstately and within the state. And all those connections interconnections, and the cumulative impacts from all of that really need to be studied. And the cumulative impacts over time, longitudinally, which of course you don't know what's going to happen in the future, but people are projecting what can happen in the future. Things that have already happened, we know what's happened in Pennsylvania with the compressor stations down there. We know the impacts on people and animals, economically as well as in terms of health. I want FERC to look into all of that. And I have a question. FERC is part of the Department of Energy,
Well, we're an independent agency.
but I thought under the Department of Energy.
We work sort of within the purview of the Department of Energy, but we actually are completely independent. For
Okay.
instance, when there is a government shutdown, we don't necessarily have to shut down because we're not an executive agency.
Okay. If the President of the United States mandates exploration and extraction and increased use of natural gas, is there any chance that FERC would say no?
Yeah, I can't answer that.
No, it's sort of a rhetorical question, but it's something to think about. Thank you.
Next is Clark Rhodes.
How many left again?
Seven.
It's been difficult for you. I appreciate your time.
That's what I'm here for.
Did you say that I was sitting in the back and there was I could barely hear you, and I have good hearing, by the way. We don't deal with fracking, is that correct?
Yes, we do not have any regulatory authority over fracking. That is typically, we don't have any authority whatsoever by Congress to regulate that at all.
Well, that's a strange thing to say, because I believe it was 2012, in the Sabine Pool, which is owned by Dominion, are you familiar with it, in Pennsylvania?
I'm not that familiar with it.
Okay, I believe it has a radius of 32 miles, and it's a gas storage area. Now, there was 6 companies wanted to frack around the Sabine Pool, and FERC said, and there was a lawsuit, and it went above FERC, and FERC gave a legal ruling. And the legal ruling was that you cannot frack within 2,000 feet of this gas pool, number one. And on paragraph 29, I don't have it in front of me, so I'm paraphrasing. On paragraph 29, they said there has been no model that has been demonstrated by fracking to show how long the fracks would go, the distance they would go, the size they would go, and where they would go. So that was, and then on paragraph 31, they said fracks will go up to between hundreds and thousands of feet, and those are out of bounds. And so they told these 6 companies that they couldn't frack within 2,000 feet of the Sabine reservoir. So in that case, FERC did influence fracking or set the laws on fracking. So I don't know if you were aware of that.
I mean, I wasn't aware of that particular. It was a court case, my assumption is.
It was a
Yeah,
court
and
case, yes.
If the court ordered that, then that would be
FERC, or it was under FERC. It was FERC who made the decision, the ruling decision. Okay, so when you said FERC doesn't do anything dealing with fracking, I believe that was an inaccurate statement.
Well, we still don't have any regular authority to actually, we can't actually regulate how wells are drilled, that sort of thing.
But you can regulate, in this ruling, it did regulate how close wells could be drilled to the Sabine Pool.
There are actually in most storage pools, there is the pool itself, then there's a buffer zone. And so I'm not exactly sure, I'm not familiar with the particulars of the case, so I'll have to look into it. But I mean, the fact of the matter is they don't come to us when they're gonna drill.
No, but I believe you gave inaccurate information when you said that. That's my impression. All right, let's go on. You said that you would have another meeting. When will we know about that, and how will you let us know?
Well, we will go ahead and publish another about other meetings. Same as before, we publish what's called a notice of intent to prepare an environmental assessment. Now, when we just do a specific meeting, we will just specifically send a notice into the landowners about that specific meeting. Also, it will go into NGOs. It will go to the all the mailing lists as I discussed before. We'll have to go back to FERC and figure out a good schedule for when we can do those meetings.
All right. I noticed that on the sign-up sheet, you only gave addresses and not emails, and most people communicate by email today.
I do understand, and that's something we're looking into, and how to create an email list for this. I mean, okay, it actually is a much more complicated issue than you think, because we need to make sure that people are on the formal mailing list, and right now, there's no protocols within FERC to make sure that all the people that, you can't just email people and assume that they get it. People change emails very regularly, so that's one of the reasons. That's why we go by mailing list, their physical address, as opposed to simply their email address. It's something we're looking to see whether we can do in the future. We just spoke about it, over the last couple months. So,
well, I am an intervener, and I get stuff from FERC all the time via email.
Yeah, you specifically have signed up to be an intervener, and you were on the intervener list. For the general public, we don't have such a thing as yet.
Well, what I'd like to read, and I'm not prepared, this is from Energy Science and Engineering, published by the Society of Chemical Industry. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I'm reading this, it's short, it'll only take me a minute or two, mm-hmm. But
well, you only have about a minute, so.
Well, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, said, that's an American governmental panel, by the way. The most recent report in the IPCC in 2013 on the physical science base of global warming highlighted the role of methane in global warming in multiple timescales, using the GWP, which is global warming potential. Thank you. Is in a 10-year time frame is 108 times that of carbon dioxide. Mm-hmm. The IPCC further concluded that at a 10-year time scale, the current global release of methane from all anthropogenic, that means releases by human being caused, sources exceeds all anthropogenic carbon dioxide emissions as an agent of global warming. That means right now, the methane that is escaping upstream and downstream exceeds all the carbon dioxide that is released. It is the worst greenhouse gas there is. The IPCC further concludes that on a 10-year timescale, the current global concluded that a release of methane, I read that. That is, methane emissions are more important than carbon dioxide emissions.
So I'm gonna have to ask
for driving the current rate of global warming. I would like to say something else. You didn't know the MAOP of this pipeline. Mm-hmm. To me, that's obscene. Do you know why?
Why?
What purpose is the MAOP used on?
As I explained, MAOP is a maximum allowable operating pressure of a pipeline.
And why is that important?
Because it's only approved for up to that pressure. Above that, it may cause issues with multiple issues with safety of the pipeline.
But what did they use the MAOP for?
It's used for multiple areas and also for calculating basically the potential impact radius as well.
Precisely. And so that people in this area could understand what the potential impact radius is, they need to know the MAOP.
I understand.
And since you can't do it, you're having a meeting and they don't know how close to the minimum kill zone they are. This is obscene. How can you stand here and not know that? I expect that next time you have a meeting, you'll have that answer.
There's a huge amount. As I stated, I mean, at the tip of my tongue, I can't have every single fact and data about this pipeline. However, we have numerous questions out to the company to actually get information that we need. Again, this is early in the process, as I stated.
But how can you have a meeting like this and not know something as basic as the MAOP?
Again, I simply have not known at the tip of my tongue, like I said, but it will be in the document, we will discuss it. I mean, it will be in the environmental assessment, we can discuss the potential impact radius. We talk about safety all the time in the project, so we talk about safety impacts and impacts to the public. We do that a great deal, and we take it very, 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 very important to us, frankly, because we don't want projects to go in that might have an incident. So.
Well, you're dealing with an old pipeline, and
I understand your concerns, sir.
all right, and one more thing I want to say.
Sir, you
and that's one more thing I want to say. I want to say something to you too, and to the rest of the people in the orange things. I want jobs. I want jobs for Americans. Shipping our gas overseas is taking job away from Americans, because we could be using that gas in America for production of goods and services. And we're not. And we're sending it overseas. We're losing our advantage in the manufacturing industry. And that affects everyone here. So that's all I have to say.